This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is April 3rd, 2025. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host, Kevin Tucker. Kevin, how are you, my friend?
Doing quite well. Glad to be hanging out with you once again. Also glad that today, Wednesday, as we're recording this, we got to unveil something new, something spicy, something fresh, something that was requested quite a lot. And so I'm excited to get to share that with the people on the podcast and YouTube platform as well.
New shirt, folks. We revealed or came out with this shirt that I'm wearing now. If you're watching on YouTube, we came out with our first piece of merch since the rebrand, the long sleeve, back in December. Obviously, when it was a little bit cooler out. But during that time, while that pre-order was up, we kept getting questions of like, are you guys making a black version? And are you making like a short sleeve, like tee version? So we are excited to announce that, yes, that's exactly what we're doing. Actually, the colorway is a little bit different, obviously, so that it works on a black t-shirt, right? Like black text on a black t-shirt doesn't exactly work. So it's a little bit different of a colorway. And it's the same kind of look and feel. It's like a drop shoulder tee. So it's a little bit baggy, but it's still a really comfortable and good fit. If you're not into like the super boxy stuff, this is still going to be a good fit for you. Same high quality look and feel as the last one, but this time in t-shirt form. So we're super pumped up about this. If you want to check it out, Kevin will probably put a picture here as he's doing his editing stuff per usual. Or if you want to head on over to thesixmanshow.com/shop, it's up for pre-order as of today, like just before noon we put it up. And this pre-order is going to run for 2 weeks like the last one. So the pre-order will end on April 16th. So get it between now and then. If not, it'll be gone forever. Yeah, really big fan of this. Again, very highly requested. So yeah, pumped up about that. Looks really good. Again, good reception so far. We've already sold some shirts as we're recording this on Wednesday night. So appreciate the love, appreciate the support from everybody, and appreciate those of you that came out to the Court of Dreams this past weekend. I know we talked a little bit about the Court of Dreams experience on the last episode where we got to play on the floor. That was Sunday, but then on Monday night, we got to go to the game with some of our patrons and fans and everybody that came to that experience. We got to go to the game the next night, sat in section 103, which I realized I don't think I had ever sat in section 103 before. It's like right over the away tunnel. So that was my first time sitting there. And I've got to tell you, Kev, I think I paid $130 for that ticket. For $130 to be able to play on the Kia Center floor and then go to a game and have like really good lower bowl seats, there's not really a better deal that you can ask for. And we had a lot of fun. We were really loud and rowdy in the opportunities that the Magic gave us. They were, I don't want to say few and far between, but definitely not as much as we would have liked as we lost the game. And obviously we'll talk about the game. But again, just wanted to shout out everybody that came for that event. It was just so much fun. Whether it's just a regular group night or we get to do like the Court of Dreams, I like being at games and being really loud, and it's frustrating when other people around you don't kind of like join in. But when we're with our people and it's like a 6-man show group night, like everybody kind of joins in and it just kind of changes the atmosphere, at least in that section, and really changes my experience at games. So always appreciate that, and it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, and you could honestly, maybe I was just, it was messing with my mind, but I felt like I could hear the fan base a little more, just a little more at Monday's game. So yeah, I'm no doubt credit to you and all the true Magic maniacs that came out as part of that group night. Yeah, always fun, and that's one of the best things that we do. One of my favorite things we do is just getting Magic fans together to watch games, whether it's watch parties or home games at Kia Center. And so, yeah, definitely looking forward to running it back again next season sometime.
And it was a big game. Like, I think everybody kind of understood, like, not just our section, but like the whole building. I don't want to say it had a playoff atmosphere, but it was kind of as close as you can get in the regular season Obviously, names like James Harden and Kawhi Leonard are coming to town. That's going to kind of raise the energy of everybody in the building. But you could tell that it was a significant game for the Magic, and unfortunately, they didn't pull it out. But again, we will talk about that. But it was a lot of fun, and just appreciate everybody that came out. Appreciate our guy John McCall and the entire group sales team that helped set that up and allowed us to do the Court of Dreams night. So just super grateful for them. If you need anything ticket wise, or especially if you have any kind of group outing, definitely recommend hitting up our guy John McCall. Always comes through for us every time, and he and their entire team, just really a pleasure to work with. Okay, folks, let's get into the weekly state of the Magic, or at least so far this week. The Magic are 1-1, lost to the Clippers on Monday, a win over the Spurs on Tuesday, now sitting at 37-40 at the time of this recording. The Magic are 7th in the Eastern Conference. The Hawks and the Mavericks, they're getting ready to tip off, so depending on what happens with that game, we could be 8th, or we could have a full game up on the Hawks by the time that you are listening to this. Or would it be a half game at this point? I don't know.
It'll be a half game, yeah.
It'll be a half game. So right now we're tied with Atlanta, but we have a little bit better of a winning percentage, and we have a better division record as of right now. So we hold those kind of tiebreakers there. We're 2 games up on the Heat, 2.5 games up on Chicago. So this play-in race is getting a lot tighter than maybe we anticipated a couple of weeks ago. But the Magic right now, they're sitting in 7th. That's where they want to be. The Magic still control their destiny. And the Magic are 27th in the season in offensive rating, with an offensive rating of 108.5. So they're up from 28th. They've been 28th for 3 months. A quick little bump up to 27th. We'll see if that holds. But the offensive rating of 108.5, back up to 2nd in the league in defensive rating, with a defensive rating of 109.2. And they are 18th in the league in net rating, with a negative net rating of 0.7. Since the All-Star break, Kevin, 21st in offensive rating, with an offensive rating of 111.9. And they've been hanging around 13th, 12th, 11th in defensive rating post All-Star break. After the last couple of defensive performances, they're up to 4th now post All-Star break in defensive rating, with a 110.5 defensive rating, and 13th in net rating with a positive net rating of 1.4, Kev. Wow. So Magic have been, top half of the league at least since the All-Star break, and I think it matches the eye test in the way that they've been performing for the last, month and a half.
It does, but it's also still surprising. That as a concept, the Magic being top half in the league in net rating, when you still think about the fact the offense most nights isn't great. However, there have been a lot of nights lately where that has not been the case. Like the offense suddenly can shoot the basketball, but unfortunately, as we know, the consistency there is the problem. Honestly, the last week has been a great sample size of that, But regardless, very impressive. And jumping back up to 2nd in the league overall in defensive rating over the course of the season. That's impressive. I know that's important to Jamal Mosley and the whole staff. And we'll see if they can keep that up over the last, 5 games? Is that what we have left?
Yeah.
5 games. Yeah, that's
5
crazy.
games left. Well, I know that you know this, but our listeners may have forgotten. Probably not. The Magic are 30th in 3-point percentage on the season, with a 31.4 mark. Post All-Star break, they're 27th, 33.7. So not a ton better, but at least you're not, the bottom of the league by several percentage points. So give the Magic a little bit of credit in that area.
Really fast. Do you still have the season 3-point percentage numbers there in front of you?
I can pull that up in just a second here. I'm
just curious what the gap is between us and number 29. And if there's any way in the last 5 games.
Points. No,
absolutely not. Nope. Magic are going to have the worst 3-point shooting percentage in the league this season by far.
And one of the worst 3-point percentages of the modern basketball era as a team.
Crazy.
Really impressive. Some injury report news. Cole Anthony returned to the lineup Tuesday against the San Antonio Spurs. And he's not on the injury report for Thursday. So outside of the 2A guys, Mo and Jalen, clean injury report for the Magic. So hopefully it stays that way. You've got 5 games, then hopefully you've got 1 play-in game, and then you've got a playoff series coming up. So this is the time of year that you want to be healthy. What I would give to have Jalen and Mo Wagner right now healthy, I would give a lot. I'll just leave it at that. I would do some things that people might shame me for, but that's not going to happen. That's just not a possibility. His what was the the name, the tracheal or whatever it was, or trochlea that Jalen injured and the ACL. Those unfortunately are not going to heal, over the course of the next, week and a half, 2 weeks here. So that just kind of is what it is. So that's the state of the Magic so far. Let's go back to Monday night. Magic at home over the LA Clippers. Again, felt like this was a really big opportunity for the Magic to. We've been talking on the post-game live, Kevin, about like the are we back meter, right? And I think right now you're like sort of back, I think is where you have the meter currently.
Yep.
And with a win like this, I think we would have been like pretty much or like mostly back.
Yeah.
Because it would have just shown you that like you can consistently beat these upper echelon teams. The Clippers coming into this game having the second best defensive rating in the league. The Magic had the third best defensive rating heading into this game. So you knew it was going to be a defensive battle. And that's really exactly what we got. The Magic fall 96-87. A really tough stretch to start the game and a tough stretch in that second quarter as well. But then the Magic went on a little bit of a run to close that second quarter. I think they had a 2 or a 3-point lead at the half, but then the second half happened, and I think the Magic started that third quarter, had like 3 points over the first like 8 or 9 minutes, and then got themselves into a little bit of a hole. And then when they started to go on a run, Ty Lue called a timeout, which put a rest to all of the momentum that the Magic had at that point. And then it started to come back towards the end, but it was kind of just too little, too late. And our best guys just weren't really good enough offensively, at least from like an efficiency standpoint. Like Paolo and Franz combined for what was that 2 of 15 from behind the arc, and shoot 8 of 19 and 8 of 23, Franz and Paolo respectively. And then not a super crazy high turnover game in terms of the number, but the quality of those 14 turnovers. This may have been one of the worst games of the year, in my opinion, in terms of some of the decision making and the passes that were made. Like the 14 turnovers, we could probably look at 7 to 8 of them that are just flat out, what in the world are you thinking? What are you doing kind of moments? And then you get absolutely clobbered on the glass in this game. You're out rebounded 47 to 32. You don't shoot that much worse than the Clippers, so it's not like, oh, there were more opportunities kind of things for the Clippers. And you have Ivica Zubac with 20 boards in this game. He really just dominated the game for them, really, in all facets. And this was a frustrating one because it was a big opportunity. The Magic were playing well enough, at least in that first half, to kind of steal a win in this one. And then the offense just falls completely flat in that second half, Kev.
Well, that's the thing. Like, defensively, the Magic did everything they needed to do to win this game. Like, I thought the defense was good, and obviously the stats back it up. The hard part is the Clippers' defense is also really good, and they were able to flex that muscle in this game. The turnovers, you're right. Like, I mean, Paolo had 7 turnovers in this game. Like, that's wild stuff. And he's had an issue with turnovers the last, week and some change or so, but 7 turnovers in a game is crazy. But you're right. A lot of them were pretty shocking turnovers, and it almost felt like they were actually rattled. Like, I think this Clippers defense rattled them a little bit and had them just forcing them into just really stupid decisions. And give a lot of credit to the Clippers for that, but at the end of the day, like you said, it just comes down to not having offense. The Magic were getting stops in that fourth quarter. They were getting stops that felt like could generate a run, but time and time and time again, they came up empty on the offensive end. They just scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, 19 in the third. That's 40 points in the second half. Never going to be good enough most nights to win a game, especially against a really good team. So yeah, that was tough, disappointing, but at the same time, not super surprising.
It was a rough night for Paolo. I know we mentioned the 8 of 23 from the floor, but 7 turnovers in this game. And he came out in that first quarter and we're like, okay, we're in for a really good Paolo night. Like, had 11 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, was 2 of 5, but was getting to the free throw line at will. 7 free throws in that first quarter for him. And he finishes that game with 9. So only got to the free throw line twice after that first quarter. And I think a lot of that had to do with like just settling for mid-range jumpers, settling for threes. There was a concerted effort on behalf of the Clippers to not let him get to the rim, not let him get to the line. But yeah, if Paolo and Franz aren't having like efficient nights, most nights that's going to spell a loss for the Orlando Magic. And Anthony Black, I don't want to say to his credit, but I guess a positive for AB was that he was really aggressive, but maybe a bit too aggressive in this one. Only had 2 turnovers. Both turnovers were absolutely awful. He finishes with 8 points, 3 of 10 from the floor, 0 of 2 from behind the arc. Missed a lot of good looks in this one, Anthony Black did, and he was a team low negative 14, in his plus minus. So, yeah, just not really a good matchup. I mean, the Magic's offense struggles enough as it is, even against like the worst of defenses, but you put them up against, one of the better defenses in the league. And if we don't have it going in from behind the arc and, after that first quarter, you're not really getting to the free throw line, you've got to be pretty much perfect in every other aspect of the game to be able to get a win, and just weren't able to do that against this Clippers team.
Yeah, tough night. But again, this is not a game I walk away super frustrated for 2 reasons. One, because we're just kind of used to it when it comes to this team and this offense. Like, nights like this aren't surprising. In fact, they're more common than not. But the bigger reason is, again, that Clippers defense is very, very good. I was more impressed with their defense than I was disappointed in our offense, again, because we're used to it. But I came away super impressed with them and how they played. And obviously, James Harden is going to do what he does. Although he didn't shoot the ball well, Kawhi Leonard didn't shoot the ball well, but they were able to just make enough plays down the stretch in that second half to come away with a win.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to put it. Like, especially Harden, like, didn't shoot the ball particularly well, but hit big shots in big moments and in stretches where they really needed it. And this was a close game. Obviously the Magic lose by 9, but 6 ties and 15 lead changes in this game. It was a fun game to be at. It was a good game to watch, but unfortunately, again, in that second half, especially, I'll pull up the second half numbers here, but the Magic just not really. Yeah, 37% from the floor. And 30% from behind the arc, and you shoot 8 free throws in that second half, and you score 40 points. Just not really good enough, in that perspective out of the Orlando Magic in this one.
Yeah.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from our friends over at Jam Hot Chicken. Jam Hot Chicken is bringing jams, culture, and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. Jam Hot Chicken is a Nashville and LA inspired hot chicken shack locally owned and operated by diehard Magic fans over there in Winter Park, Florida. Located at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. Be sure to follow Jam Hot Chicken at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media platforms and check them out over at jamhotchickenfl.com. You can access their menu, online ordering, all things Jam Hot. Now also available on Uber Eats for delivery locally. So if you are in the Winter Park area, but you don't want to leave the house, but you still want that delicious, hot and spicy, tangy goodness of Jam Hot Chicken, download the Uber Eats app. You can get that delivered right to your door. A big shout out to our friends over at Jam Hot Chicken. If you stop by, be sure to let them know that the boys over at the 6 Man Show sent you.
Also want to shout out some of our patrons, which you can find more information about at patreon.com/the 6 Man Show. We're going to shout out Kason Green, Austin Vogt, Ty Mr. TV, Half Freakin', and the Court Cousins. Those are 5 of our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons. We shout out a handful of those on each and every episode. Again, patreon.com/the 6 Man Show is the place to find out more about our Patreon. These are the people, our patrons, the people that are financially supporting the show. They believe in our cause. They believe in what we do. They believe in raising up more Magic fans and growing this fan community. And if you want to join that as well, again, that's the place to do it. We also always shout out brand new patrons, people who signed up for the Patreon for the very first time. And this week we get to shout out JLR19 and TKS Jet. Big shout out to both of them for joining our Patreon. And again, if you want to join them and get a shout out on an episode, you can go to patreon.com/the 6 Man Show, find out more information about the different tiers that are available, and sign on up. Now let's get back to the episode.
So right after that game, they board the plane and they fly to San Antonio. You have a really tough home away back-to-back. And this game, especially once you lost the Clippers game, right? If you win that Clippers game because you knew that this back-to-back, you had to at least split it. Had we beat the Clippers, it's like, okay, if you can get a win over the Spurs and kind of sweep that back-to-back, that's huge, and it could potentially give you a leg up on Atlanta, like going down the stretch here. But you absolutely cannot afford to lose both of those. Once you lost that, this San Antonio game, in my opinion, and I think yours as well, Kevin, became a must-win.
Yeah.
Right? And the Magic did not come out, at least in that first half, with energy that told me that the game was a must-win. Magic in that first half tied 61-61. You give up 61 points to this San Antonio Spurs team without De'Aaron Fox, without Victor Wembanyama. Like, the defense just was not super locked in. You allow San Antonio to shoot 8 of 16 from behind the arc. Julian Champagnie absolutely killed you in this game, really until like the last few minutes.
Right.
You had it going. Had one, stepped out of bounds. It was called as an out of bounds, but he shot it and missed it. And you were kind of like, oh, at least he missed one, and then missed another one a few possessions later. And at that point, it was like, okay, this guy has kind of cooled off a little bit. But to the Magic's credit, played in that second half, and especially like that fourth quarter, as if this was a game that they needed to win. And we've talked about this recently with games against Washington and games against Charlotte, where the Magic know that, hey, if we can put together like 7 solid minutes, we're going to be able to win this game really without a problem and outscore the Spurs by 16 in that third quarter. I believe they were actually trailing heading into the fourth. Yeah, they were down by 5 heading into the fourth, and then outscore the Spurs in the fourth and able to come away with a win, which was 100% a much-needed win. And Franz Wagner, we'll talk about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Caleb Houston kind of had a little bit of a rough start to this game. It was like, hey, is Caleb coming back down to earth a little bit? But then huge threes in that second half. Franz Wagner, big plays down the stretch. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope with a few massive threes down the stretch to really put this game out of reach. It wasn't pretty, Kev, but you and I have been saying this is the time of year where it doesn't matter how you win, you just have to get a win. This was a needed win. It kind of, not that the season would have been over, but the 8th seed would have been feeling a lot more likely had you not pulled out this win. And the Magic still have life as we check the score right now. Dallas is up 3 in the first quarter, just over 4 minutes into that game, I should say. So anything can happen in that one, but we're pulling for the Mavs to get the win over the Hawks. But yeah, this was a much needed win. Wasn't super pretty, but at the end of the day, you get the dub on the road. Tough night, second night of a back-to-back, home road. We'll take it.
A couple notes from this game. Not really important stuff. First off, that's the last back-to-back involving road games for the team this season. So that's cool. The only back-to-back remaining is the home back-to-back, the last 2 home games of the year. So that's pretty cool. Also cool for us, people that cover the team and do, post-game shows and podcasts after games. No more road back-to-backs. That's awesome. This is totally unrelated and really stupid, but I want to confess to the world something I told you the last time we played the Spurs, which wasn't that long ago. Do you remember that I told you when Julian Champagnie first came onto the scene in the league, which hasn't been that long. It's only been a couple seasons, like 2 or 3 seasons. I remember the first game the Magic played against him, and that name was called. I'd never heard of the guy, but I thought his name was Champagnie, like first name Sham, last name Penny. And so I always think it's funny now because, now I know he has a first name and it's Julian. But anyway, so he was great in that first half, but then cooled off, thank goodness, because he has played very well against the Magic this season. But yeah, as far as the actual game goes, you have to start the conversation with KCP, right? Like, 7 of 9 from 3. And let's not forget, that's 24 hours after going 3 for 3 from 3. So combine those 2 games, he went 10 of 12 from 3 in 24 hours. Like, holy crap. As much time as we've spent on this show complaining about him, all justified and all deserved, not being able to knock down threes this season, you got to give him credit for doing it in these 2 games, like big time. The big question mark is he going to continue? If he can't, obviously no one's going to continue shooting, 17 of 19 or whatever, that's not going to happen. But can he shoot at 40% the rest of the way and going into the postseason? If he can do that, that is going to be huge for this team. That's what we expected all season long. But if he can do that going forward, I think that's obviously huge and gives you a chance any given night. I really believe it. Any given night, if he can shoot 40% from three, it unlocks a totally different dynamic to this offense. So that's huge. But yeah, you mentioned Franz, Paolo, 48 combined points. Those were the other two high scorers outside of KCP. And yeah, not pretty first three quarters, really. But fourth quarter, they just buckled down, got to work on both ends, by the way. I thought they played really good defense in that fourth as well. And yeah, you hold them to 21 points, outscoring by 16. And yeah, you don't look back. So yeah, not pretty, but you'll take it.
I think this is KCP's best game of the season. So he's had a couple of games where he scored more. Was 8 of 13 and 6 of 10 from behind the arc in November against Chicago in a 14-point win. And then had 24, 5 of 10 from the floor, 2 of 7 from behind the arc in that miracle comeback against Miami back in December. But this one, 23 points, 8 of 11 from the floor, 7 of 9 from behind the arc. And like clutch shots down the stretch.
Yeah.
To me, this isn't what we thought we were getting. Like nobody thought we were getting 7 of 9 from three every night.
Right.
But I thought that we would get a game like this, like maybe once a month, or once every other month from him. And that obviously has not turned out to be the case. KCP, I guess that has not turned out to be the KCP. And yeah, I guess it really hasn't turned out to be the KCP that we got. But yeah, you can't help but think like if this guy just would have shot, 40% from three on the year, like right now he's at 34.3% from behind the arc this season. You just have to think we win maybe, 5 or a half dozen more games this year if this guy was able to shoot 40% all season.
Yep.
And just what that would do to the offense and what it would do to the spacing. I think teams still treat him as if he's a shooter. It's not like they leave him, but it's just a different feeling when a guy is knocking down shots and the confidence is contagious in that way. So, but this was a massive Kentavious Caldwell-Pope game. I know we also mentioned Caleb Houston as well, 12 points, 4 of 8 from behind the arc. Miss a couple to start the game, and then I think had like 3 threes. What is it? Towards the end of the third or the beginning of that fourth. And those were massive. It was like Franz started to knock down some shots, and all of a sudden Caleb hit a few shots, and then went right into Kentavious Caldwell-Pope knocking down some shots. And KCP at the end of the game, you just kind of knew when he pulled up it was going in, and we have not had that feeling from him for most of this year. So yeah, not the most efficient games from Franz and Paolo. 24 points apiece. Franz 9 of 20, Paolo 9 of 21. They combined 3 of 14. Paolo was 0 of 4. Franz was 3 of 10 from behind the arc. But Paolo added 10 rebounds. Franz had 5 rebounds, 7 assists. Solid game from them. When you've got guys like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and like Caleb Houston that are stepping up the way that they did, just huge games from those guys. And this was a much-needed win. You've got it. You lose that game, again, 7 seed kind of feels up in the air, and now it still feels like you've got a real chance at that, and kind of keeping hope alive here as we head into the last handful of games.
Jonathan, do you make anything or find any concern in Paolo's recent turnover situation? I hinted at it earlier, but his last 5 games, well, I'll go to his last 4 games, 6, 1, 7, 5 turnovers. So in this 24-hour back-to-back, 12 turnovers in these 2 games. And, Clippers, that's one thing. Spurs, 5 turnovers against the Spurs. It's not good. 6 turnovers against the Mavericks last week. That's not a super great basketball team. So is that a cause for concern, or you think it's just a turnover slump, if that's a thing, or what do you think about that?
Fazan had a tweet about this earlier today. He said Paolo Banchero in the last 4 games has totaled 19 turnovers, second in the league behind Josh Giddey, who has 20. But in that stretch, he leads the league with an insane 38.3% usage rate. He's just being asked to carry an insane offensive load right now. So that's almost 4 out of every 10 possessions are ending in either like a Paolo shot or like a Paolo turnover, essentially. So he's just being asked to do so much when he's on the floor right now. It's not great, but am I super concerned about it all of a sudden? No. It's a rough stretch, and a rough stretch was coming after the absolute heater that he had been on for a month plus. And Definitely want to see him write that as we go into these last couple of games, because we've got huge games coming up and every possession matters this time of year, and every possession is going to matter going into the postseason. I think he's got enough time to clean it up. It's not great, but we kind of saw the same thing from Franz for, a week or 2 week stretch there, and it looks like he's mostly snapped out of that. So no, I'm not super worried about it.
I threw the softball to you because I was going to mention the exact same thing with the Franz thing. Like, we just went through this with Franz, right?
Yeah.
It was a stretch, and it almost reminded me of, like, Space Jam when the Monstars like take their talent. It wasn't quite to that extreme, but like some of the turnovers Franz had over those couple weeks was like, what in the world are you doing, man? Like, it just totally out of character for him. And I don't think this is quite as extreme as that, but yes, I mean, 7 turnovers in a game, 5 turnovers in a game, it's never good, but I'm not worried. It seems like players can just go through phases like this, just like they can go through phases of, not shooting the ball well. And it's just up to Paolo to get this behind him and obviously get it done, certainly by the time the postseason rolls around.
Yeah, like Franz is, in the course of, about 2.5 weeks was like 4, 2, 0, 2, 2, 5, 7, 6, 1, 2, 2, 4. Like, right. He went through a similar stretch like that, and the last few games 0, 2, and 0. Yeah. And if you want to go back, it's like if you go back to March 21st against the Wizards, it's 1, 2, 2, 4, 0, 2, 0.
Yeah.
High turnover games are going to happen when guys have the usage rates that these guys have. Yeah, so I'm really not all that worried about it. As a matter of fact, what I want to do here is I'm going to pull up the usage rate just for the last 4 games here across the entire league. And we need every time you go to NBA.com and you try to look something up, they want to give you all the scrubs who have played like 1 minute.
Yeah.
So let's look up guys that are playing like at least 20 minutes. Yeah. Paolo Banchero leads the league, 38.3. You've got CJ McCollum, who's played 1 game in that stretch at 36.9. And then after that, you've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's probably going to win the MVP, 35.9. Jokic, 35.7. Giannis, 34.4. So the difference between, let's see, Giannis at 34.4. So the difference between like Paolo and Giannis right now is the difference between Giannis and Josh Giddey. Like,
wow.
Who, Josh Giddey does have the ball, in his hands a lot, but like,
right.
That's a pretty significant, amount there that Paolo's handling the basketball right now. So
for sure.
But I made a joke about this during the Charlotte game last week, but I'm kind of enjoying Paolo and Franz realizing that they kind of have to do everything, because it's made for some really cool moments, but it's also incredibly taxing, and you're going to have, stretches like this where these guys are having turnover issues.
Yeah.
So, Kev, right now Hawks are up 3 on Dallas. Miami is up 21 in the third on Boston.
Just about to say, yeah, they are whooping up Boston in Boston too.
Yeah, and the Bulls are not playing. Boston's kind of in this weird spot right now where it's like they're a few games away from definitely being out of the 1 seed. There's no way they can fall to 3 essentially. Right. So it's kind of like, if Cleveland wins another game or 2, the rest of the season doesn't really matter to them at all. I think they're probably content with being the 2 seed, right? They have no qualms going into Cleveland and having to win a game 7 if it comes to that in like the Eastern Conference Finals or whatever. So I think we are going to see some weird things out of Cleveland and out of Boston, potentially the next couple of weeks as the season comes to an end. And as we look at the standings, like the Knicks are, just about wrapped up the 3 seed. The Pacers are just a couple of games away from wrapping up the 4 seed and wrapping up home court advantage. So you're going to see some of these teams start to rest a little bit, I think.
There's a scenario that literally just popped into my head while you were talking. Okay. April 9th, the last home game of the season for the Orlando Magic. They host who? The Boston Celtics. Do you think there is a world in which we're going into that game and we have 2 games left after that game, right? And the Boston Celtics are having to weigh, do we want to help the Orlando Magic be, let's say the Magic are in the 8 seed, right? At that time. do we want to help the Magic stay in the 7-8 game, or do we want to force them to the 9-10 game so that we can't play them in the first round, or vice versa? You know what I'm saying? So, like, if the Celtics have their spot locked in, which they should by then, I doubt they'll be able to catch the 1 seed. They already are guaranteed to have the 3rd best record in the league. Pretty well once they lock in the 2 seed here. They're not gonna. No one from the West outside of OKC is going to catch them. If they're worried about home court advantage in the finals, that's not a thing. But could there be a scenario in that game in which they either try to beat the Magic to knock them down, or they say, hey, we'll play the Magic in the first round, and they rest guys? And I don't know. It's just something interesting, something to keep an eye on.
If I'm the Celtics, I think I would much rather have the Hawks.
For
so
sure.
Even if you're like, hey, if we give the Magic another loss, then they're going on the road to Atlanta in the 7-8 game. And then, that gives us a better chance of having the Hawks as a first round matchup. So I would not be surprised whatsoever if at least like they try to go out and give it a good show in like the first half or like the first 3 quarters and see if they can put the Magic away.
Exactly.
And if they can't, just saying, all right, well, we're going to sit, Jalen and Jason and, some of the, Drew, especially Al Horford, like some of the older guys.
Exactly.
But I could absolutely see a scenario where they're like, hey, if we beat these guys, we don't want to see these guys in the first round necessarily.
Yeah. It's also the second night of a back-to-back for them. I just saw that. They're in New York the night before on Tuesday the 8th, and they go to Orlando on the 9th. So that's very interesting right there.
Well, I was also going to say they also could just be like, we'll kill these guys. Who cares if we see them in the first round? Like we'll kill these guys. No Jalen Suggs, no Mo Wagner, none of the guys that we hate and find super annoying.
Right.
Like we're totally fine with playing them in the first round.
Yeah.
So, Kev, I think that's mostly all that I had. We went over the last couple of games. Coming up here as you're listening to this on Thursday, we're in Washington tonight. Have to have that one. That's a big one because it's a division game. It's literally a must-win game in my opinion. Because if you don't win that game, you absolutely have to sweep Atlanta, and then you have to get one of Boston and Indiana if you want to be the 7 seed. If you get the Washington game, I think you can split the Atlanta series, and you can split Boston and Indiana, and still have a chance to have the 7 seed.
To me, like, forget the divisions, forget anything. It's a must-win because you're playing against a 16-win team. Like you just have to win that game. You just have to. And they're also on a back-to-back, by the way. They're playing, like you mentioned, they're playing the Kings tonight, and then the Magic obviously not on a back-to-back. So the Magic will have the rest advantage. It's a rest advantage game against the worst team in basketball. You just have to win it. And then you're right. Add in the division implications. It's a must-win, and anything less than a double-digit victory will be honestly disappointing, I would say.
Where if you lose this game, because we've had like multiple games throughout the season where like, oh, this is the worst loss. Oh no, now this is the worst loss. Where would this would feel like the worst loss of the season? Because when it comes to stuff like that, like, oh, this is the biggest win, this is the biggest game, this is the biggest loss, all that stuff is so very prisoner of the moment, and like recency bias comes into effect.
Yeah.
That will be my new worst loss of the season if we lose that game, given the opponent and given the implications.
Yeah, I mean, like the stretch they're on is they lost by 26 to Miami on Monday. Their only close game during this stretch was the Nets, who's also not good. But the game before that is when they lost by 53 to the Pacers. They lost by 53 points to the Pacers, right? You just can't lose to them. It would be very bad. We've had some really bad losses this season, though, Jonathan. Like the Portland games, the Utah games, those were really low.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that tomorrow couldn't be worse than that, but I mean, given the implications, I guess it's possible. So, but I'm not even going to entertain that thought. They just have to go out there and get a win. Anything less, like I said, than a double-digit victory is just not good enough for me.
The Wizards, they don't play tonight, do they? Like, we're not catching them. They're playing the Kings tonight.
I just mentioned that a second ago. Yep.
Sorry, I missed that part. Sorry about that.
Yeah, they're on a back-to-back.
I was looking at the standings because they lose tonight. They're essentially locked into the like bottom 3, and the bottom 3 all have the same lottery odds there. So after tonight, they won't really have an incentive to lose games. So they may just, if they lose to Sacramento, that is, they'll be 16-60. And I don't think Charlotte maybe, maybe not locked in, but they'll be pretty close. A loss to the Magic, I believe, if they lose to Sacramento, A loss to the Magic would, and they're up 8. You probably already mentioned that too, but they're up 8 with 6 minutes and 10 seconds to go. A couple of losses would lock them into bottom 3 seed, or bottom 3 in the league and top 3 lottery odds. So, regardless, it doesn't matter. I'm right there with you. Anything less than a 12 plus point victory is unacceptable at this point of the season. So,
yep. I know we sit here and say just win, but not this game. Just like I know we say like just find a way to win. No, this game you gotta win it comfortably.
You gotta crush them. Yeah. Washington home for Atlanta, home for Boston, at Indiana, at Atlanta. Kevin, it's crazy that here we are. What has felt like the longest season of me, and us doing the show here. It's crazy to think back to opening night. We were at I forget the name of the establishment. It might have been Social House. I think it was Social House in Orlando for the first watch party, first game of the season. Magic destroyed the Miami Heat. And now here we are with just 5 games left in the regular season. It's taken forever and also flown by at the same time.
Right. And also we're staring down the barrel of something we've never faced before as a franchise or a fan base, the play-in, right? Like something totally new. We've never experienced it. And I hate it. I love the play-in, but I hate that we're in it. Like, honestly, I hate that we're going to have to play, 48 hours after our last regular season game. If we're in that 7-8 game, that's a Tuesday game. So there's no time to rest or recuperate or not a lot of preparation. Fortunately, it looks like it's going to be against a team that you're very familiar with, but it's going to be very different. It's going to be nerve-wracking. Especially the hardest part of this is, let's say you go out there and you have a great play-in. Your reward is you're playing the Boston freaking Celtics or the Cleveland Cap. Like, that sucks, but it is what it is. We'll see if this team can make the most of it. And I guess I'm kind of excited to try something new.
Yeah, if you didn't see, the NBA announced the 2025 SoFi NBA play-in tournament. Tuesday, April 5th would be the 7th, 8th place game. And then Wednesday, April 16th will be the 9-10 game. And then Friday, April 18th would be the 8th place game
right.
the 8th seed game at that point. So if you are in the 7-8 game, if you win, obviously you're in. If you lose, then you play again on Friday. If you're in the 9-10 game, you play that game. If you lose, you go home. If you win, you play again on Friday. So that week of the 14th, obviously going to be pretty big. And I'm kind of looking forward to it, but it also just scares the crap out of me. Yeah. And Kia has to make that a game 7 type of environment. You have to treat both of those like they're win or go home, because if you get to that second game, it literally is win or go home.
So I've really hesitated sharing this, Jonathan, because I don't want to be accused of jinxing anything. But I think if I share it now, because the Magic have not clinched what seed they're going to be, if I share it now, it's not going to be counted as a jinx, okay? So everybody out there, I need you to hear me say this. I'm not jinxing anything. But I was looking at the records in the play-in. Now, there haven't been that many play-in seasons. What is this, like season 4 or something like that, right? The play-in hasn't been around that long. But if you are the 7th seed in the play-in, no 7 seed has ever failed to advance to the playoffs. It's never happened, right? So the 7-8 game, either they win the 7-8 game or they win the 8th seed game. It's happened every single time, okay? The 8th seed, if you end the regular season as the 8th seed, 3 times they haven't advanced.
So that's how many teams? What is this, the 4th year of the play-in?
This correct, yeah, 4 years, but this includes East and Western Conference. So this has 8 total, 7, 8, 9, 9, and 10 seeds, right? 4 from each conference. 4 from each conference, and 2 from each conference in 4 years. That's what I'm trying to say. 8 total, right? So again, in the 4 years,
they're 5 and 3.
No. Let me go through it this way. The 7 seed in the 7-8 game, they are 6 and 2. Okay, East and West. The 8 seed obviously is the opposite. They're 2 and 6. The 9 seed is 6 and 2 in their 9-10 game, and the 10 seed is 2 and 6. Okay, but going through, like, advancing to the playoffs, the 7 seed has never failed to advance. The 8 seed has only failed to has failed to advance 3 out of the possible 8 The 9 seed has failed to advance 5, and the 10 seed has never advanced to the playoffs ever. 0-8. So again, just interesting stats. Not going to be blamed for jinxing because I don't know if the Magic are going to be 7 or 8
we are 100% blaming you.
But I just wanted the people
if
to know.
If the Magic are the first ever 7 seed to not make the playoffs, it'll be the curse of Kevin Tucker.
If I covered it in saying this is not a jinx, then I'm covered.
This doesn't work like that. This doesn't work like that. If David Steele goes, yeah, Paolo Banchero is 9 for 9 tonight, but this is not a broadcaster jinx if he misses it.
He's covered.
If he misses it, it's still a broadcaster jinx.
Yeah, you're probably right. Well, it's my duty to inform the public.
You are correct.
So I've done that. And
you get all the credit for bringing the stat, and you will get all the blame if that just introduced some bad juju into the Orlando Magic universe.
I just ask you guys go nice on me if that happens, but hopefully it doesn't. We'll see.
That if that happens, if we are the 7th seed, we lose the 7-8 game, and then we lose the 8th seed game, that final episode of the season will be called the Kevin Tucker curse, or the curse of Kevin Tucker.
What have I done?
Yeah,
that's fair though. That'd be kind of a cool episode title.
It would be. I think it's great. It's like the what is it from SpongeBob? The hash slinging slasher. That'd be you.
I guess I have no idea, but yeah.
You don't know about the hash slinging slasher? I could be butchering that. Let's see. Yeah, the hash slinging slasher, dude. You don't know that episode from SpongeBob?
No.
Wow. Were you? I wasn't even a SpongeBob guy. You really weren't a SpongeBob guy.
No, definitely not.
What were you watching?
We didn't have cable,
of SpongeBob,
so didn't watch any of that Nickelodeon stuff.
Well, now this is depressing. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is a perfect opportunity to end this episode, folks. Don't forget, if you want to see the shirt, rewind a little bit if you're on YouTube. Kevin will post it when we talk about it.
Just
at the
click
beginning.
the link in the description.
That's a perfect way to do that. It'll be in the podcast description and in the YouTube video description. It's on our social media platforms as well. Or if you just want to go to the sixmanshow.com/shop, it's there. Again, the tee is up for pre-order until April 16th. Stuff like this really helps us out a lot as we continue to try to make this full time. Eventually, if we're able to get to a good place where we can put out merch and people buy it, stuff like that really helps. And going into the whole rebrand, we're like, how can we make this cool so that people will want to wear it and it's it looks cool to wear, obviously. So anyways, if you guys support, we appreciate that. If not, we love you anyways. That's going to do it for this one. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!